Good morning, everyone. I'm Ayesha, and I'm the online producer with the Nepali Times. Today, I'll be talking with Kunda Dixit, who's the editor of Nepali Times. He'll be talking about the Royal Massacre 15 years later. Hi, Kunda sir. Welcome. So I have a few questions today regarding the Royal Massacre. So it's been 15 years today, and I know that Nepali Times did an extensive coverage 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So do you stand by, or does Nepali Times stand by the story that it produced 15 years ago?
Yes, basically. I think we covered the Royal Massacre, tragic as it was, as another criminal story. And like in all crime reporting, you really have to interview the eyewitnesses, you have to cross-check their facts, you have to verify them, you have to speak to as many people who were there as possible. And this whole thing was shrouded in secrecy. So from day one, in fact, from the time it happened, which is 8:45 on June 1st, Friday, 2001, from the moment it happened, there was all kinds of rumors. You really had to sift through all the untruths that were coming out, people exaggerating things, people speculating to get to the truth. And in fact, I think we erred on the side of caution because we had the story by about 10 p.m. Who was dead, who was wounded, who was in hospital, what had happened, everything. But it just was so shocking. The event was so momentous that we thought, what if it's wrong? So we actually ended up sending the story out only on June 2nd, 1 a.m., so past midnight. I think, the basic facts of the story are more or less the same. I think the only thing that has changed over the last 15 years is what were the motives of Crown Prince Dipendra. We knew the motives, but we've sort of made, I think there is now some changes in what is the main motivation, what is the number two motivation, what are the other factors that was involved. So factors we know, but maybe up and down. There's some question now about, for example, after talking even 15 years later to eyewitnesses and members of the royal family at that time, there's some question now about whether Dipendra really wanted to kill everyone. And I think the evidence is swinging to the side of him trying to kill his father, his dad, so that he'd become king and he could do whatever he wanted, marry who he wanted, do the kind of politics he wanted, because he was, as we now know, less democratic, liberal than his father. And he was growing impatient with the state of the country, the way the Maoist war was spreading, the way democracy was sort of unraveling, and so forth.
So I was just wondering, what was the first fact that you heard at night? What was the first thing you heard?
Well, we got some phone calls from people living in the Lazimpat area who heard gunshots. And the first thing that went through my mind, and a lot of other people's mind, was, well, the Royal Palace is under attack by the Maoists. And that's what we believed actually till almost then, until the reports started coming in from Chowni, that the bodies and the wounded were coming in. And even then we thought, well, the Maoists have gone in and they've killed everyone. So when the truth finally came out that it was actually the Crown Prince who had gone on a killing spree, it was actually totally unbelievable.
So why did you wait for so many hours later? Because you told me like you only published the first story around 1 a.m. on the 2nd of June. So why did you wait for so many hours?
Well, just to be totally sure. I mean, when you have a story like this, you can't get it wrong. You just have to be completely sure, at least about the facts. And then the analysis and interpretations that will come later, and those have to be based on facts. So we have to get the facts right. And the fact that everyone was waiting for was, did the Crown Prince kill everyone or not? So we, I think, went very early on compared to other media with that fact. And that was based on a lot of the surgeons who were operating on the Crown Prince and the others. They told us about the wounds in his head, the self-inflicted wounds. And so, based on all these facts, we went with the story that it was Crown Prince Dipendra.
So could you tell me more about how Nepali Times covered the Royal Massacre? How was the coverage in the newspaper?
Yeah, well, I just brought out from all our archives up here the issue of June 1st, 2011. So this was Friday morning. this was the front page, and you can see this cartoon by Subhas Rai. It shows Nepal in disarray. There were strikes every day. The political parties were bickering, and the Maoist war was spreading in the countryside. So it sort of was a sort of light-hearted take on that. And believe it or not, the editorial on page 1 actually says, "Long live the king." No, we had no premonition that the massacre was about to happen, but this was an editorial based on what the Maoists were trying to do in schools in the countryside. Was they were banning the national anthem, which said "Long live the king," and they were trying to have the revolutionary anthem. So yeah, and then I think what we did, which was unprecedented, was when the massacre happened, we couldn't wait till next Friday for the next issue. So we brought out a midweek issue, which was very unusual, and it was only a few pages, but that was our front page with Gyanendra's coronation, where it was happened in the middle of a curfew. There was violence in the streets. We had to shift our newsroom to our living room because we couldn't go to the office to work out of there. And then the weeks later, I think this was a very telling headline because the Inquiry Commission report had come out, as well as our investigations had shown that it was Dipendra. So we had this headline that sort of became media history because it was Dipendra with a full stop. Okay, let's stop this conspiracy theories and things, but it was Dipendra who did it. Let's try to find out why. And so if you look at the inside of that, from those times, it would be letters to the editors about the massacre, the shock from everyone. There were 2 pages of letters to the editors. There was reaction from politicians. And the interesting thing here is that except for the politicians who are dead, everyone else are still around and they're still playing politics. I think we did this very illustrative kind of dynasty tree, looking back from Prithvinarayan Shah right down to who was killed on that day. So and who was related to whom. I think that was a very interesting kind of infographic. And how Gyanendra was actually the second time he became king. And then I think the interesting thing that there were in 4 days we had 3 kings in this country, including a king who was in a coma. And I think there are still investigations to be done. For example, Dipendra was in a coma. Did anyone actually take a decision to pull the plug on it? I mean, we don't know that yet.
So that's not sure yet.
That's not sure, and no one is really trying to find out. There are lots of other aspects of it which are still, out there, which need to be told. But new things keep coming out. For example, when you interview eyewitnesses from that night, and also royal family members, they tell you things like Dipendra had actually, after wounding his dad first time, raised his gun over his head and said, "I'm now king." And then spun around and then came back only later when he found out that his father was not yet dead to then kill him. And how he seemed to have run amok after his favorite uncle, Prince Dhirendra, who was a karate black belt, approached him, shock in his face, and said, "What are you doing? Give me that gun." And then he kills his favorite uncle. And I think, the people we interviewed thought that was when he just then started spraying everyone. The other thing that was quite shocking is the niece of King Virendra, Kitiki Chester, telling us in an interview 5 years ago that after killing his dad, Dipendra went to him and actually kicked his body. And she says, for her, that was even more shocking than the killing itself. So there are different aspects of this thing which haven't yet come out, which I think the story will be there, the conspiracies will be there. There's still lots of people in Nepal who don't believe the facts. And I'm sure this debate will also be debated.
So that's what I wanted to come to. Like, what do you think about the conspiracy theory? Because it's been 15 years, but the truth is, again, like, it's out, but people have different versions. So what do you think about it?
Well, some conspiracy theories are less plausible than others. Others, there may be some merit to them. I think human beings in general, not just in Nepal, everywhere, believe conspiracy theories. They'd rather believe a complicated conspiracy theory than a very simple explanation of what happened. And I think here too we have fallen into that trap. You know, the facts are pretty clear, and we had no agenda in this. We were covering it as the facts became available. And the fact that for 15 years, more or less, the basic truth of what happened has more or less stayed the same for us, means that probably we were pretty close to the truth. Now, what can be debated would be other aspects of it, the motivation, other factors, why some of the people like the person that Crown Prince Dipendra wanted to get married to, what is that last phone call with him about? I mean, just minutes before the shooting spree started, Dipendra was in a longish phone call with Vivian. What is that all about? What is in it? Because she's the one who has not really spoken at length to the Inquiry Commission or to anyone else since then. So that would be possible avenues of inquiry.
So there's still a lot more to be.
I would say, yeah, the basic facts are there. We know the outlines of the truth, but the nuances, the various factors, I think those can be investigated.
I just have one last question. As a newspaper, again, 15 years ago, when you cover news, it's a bit different compared to how you cover news right now. So do you think if it was like, you know, in the social media generation, how different do you think we would have covered it? How different would it be?
Yeah,
if it happened now?
It's incredible because when it happened in June 2001, mobile phones had just started coming into Nepal, and these were dumb phones, not even smartphones. And only a few hundred people in Kathmandu had mobile phones. So imagine if there were smartphones and people were tweeting about it. So I would say both sides. I think there would be rampant rumors, much more than we had then. We'd have many more conspiracy theories. They would be flying at the speed of light. And I think the truth would be even murkier in a way. But as you know, social media has a way of correcting itself. So the people who are telling the truth, the filtered news through the mainstream media, because mainstream media also has social media outlets, those will be coming out and hopefully would be suppressing the untruths and the falsehoods, which is usually what happens in other crises and tragedies like this today, you know, with social media. So that's probably how it would happen. But in the beginning, there would be, I mean, it'd be rampant. The conspiracy theory, the gossip, the rumors, and so forth. As we saw with the earthquake as well. So after the earthquake, as you know, we had a lot of gossip and rumors flying out, especially through Facebook. Sorry, Facebook. And but you know, this is now possible on the 15th anniversary that we can do a Facebook news live through the newsroom here.
Okay, thank you, Kunda sir, for
Thank you,
joining
Ayesha.
me in this conversation. I think it's been really fruitful for me and for our followers as well. Thank you, everybody. If there's any other questions, please drop it in your comment section. We'll try to answer it, and we'll try doing a live session like this more frequently. If there's any other feedback, comments, please do write to us. Thank you.